Hi there YouTube, this is the Magnus bringing you another Total War Warhammer online ladder battle. Today my opponent chose to play as Bretonnia and I brought the Dwarfs. So let's take a look at my new box build here. I have 6 miners, 2 longbeards, 2 dwarf warriors, the grumbling guard. I have 2 of the quarrelers, the goblobber, a runesmith, a master engineer, a thane, and Thorgrim Grudgebearer. So let's take a look at what my opponent brought. He has 1 trebuchet that he deployed forward, which is perfectly safe considering the dwarfs have nothing that can cross the field that quickly. He has 3 peasant bowmen. He has 4 spearmen at arms. He has 1 grail knight and it looks like 2 knights of the realm. He has a damsel and the flying flunky squad of 2 paladins and King Lewin and Kor. So let's see how this plays out. So right away I'm going to try to get my artillery firing at his artillery, which I only really did because they're the closest and I didn't want to have to move too much forward. So you're going to see me just start wheeling the cart forward. And then the stupid alt control group thing wasn't working right, so I was having trouble getting my infantry and everybody to go where they were supposed to go. So it looks a little hectic and messy. Let's go ahead and fast forward while I try to get in position. He brings his flying flunky squad over, and they're going to come in, and let's see what they're going to target. So my archers are going to shoot at King Lewin. They kind of shake him up there a bit, slowing him down. Not a bad thing. His paladins opt to fly by. I make a complete mess out of my formation, but Lewin continues to sit there and eat arrows. I'm winning an artillery duel at the current time, but of course King Lewin can regen quite well. But you want to beat him down any chance you get. He's going to come diving in here, going after my artillery, and I'm going to keep shooting him in the face, and then my quarrelers actually go into melee here. Not sure why, I didn't tell them to, but I think they kind of did that as a default. Now I'm just going to rush all my infantry at him and see if I can nail him down, but no success there. So then I start to redeploy into a line, thinking, okay, now we can have a normal fight. I retake my artillery piece. I'm shooting at him with the engineer and with my archers here at King Lewin and Kor, and he's gonna bring his paladins on another flyby here, but opt not to bring them in, but bring in the kings once again at my artillery. So I'm just gonna send everything after him and try to get him pinned down, which the miners are usually pretty decent at pinning flying units. So you're gonna see he's having some trouble getting out of here. He uses stand your ground, but he is pushing through them, and he's starting to get out. I've got everybody and their brother, which is not good when you have artillery firing at you, but I figured if I could kill the king right out the gate, it would be worth it, but no go on that. So now I'm going to send everybody towards these paladins he has out here on the side, because he seems completely obsessed with killing my quarrelers and my goblobber, which, you know, I get those are high threat units, but is it worth getting your king nearly killed or wearing out your paladins? We'll see. So once again, his trebuchet is firing. It's got 50 kills already, and now he's going to start to move forward his main body. So I start to get in the lines again, expecting him to want to have a regular engagement at this point, because he's pulled back all of his flying. And I basically just form a front line with my quality infantry and decide to put the miners in the back, and then have, you know, my quarrelers, my artillery, and all of my heroes in the middle. So you'll see me issuing commands for all them to go in there. And if you look at it, you see this little green glow. That's caused by the grumbling guard that's keeping them fresh. On second blush, like, I'd like to have this line just a little bit more forward, so the more units were affected by it, and of course I'd prefer to have them in the center, but I thought I might have to rush into formation to be ready for his big push here. So he continues to chuck trebuchet shots. Trebuchet is not particularly devastating, not particularly accurate. It's just not a great piece. I like the goblobber a lot better. Of course, it has less kills because it fought in the artillery duel. But now that he has actual units in my area, I'm going to use it on his infantry and on his bowmen. Now, the problem being, Bretonnia is really good at stretching out into very thin lines, and they make for a very small target, whereas my dwarfs are a little more hefty in their lines. But I'm okay with it. I'm just waiting to see what he's going to do. I'm fine with his trebuchet firing. I mean, he's done a little damage to a good bit of units here. But like I said, I put a pretty good pounding on the king, and his field trebuchet, which was pretty much worthless. But let's see, peasant and bowman took a decent bit of damage. So he sends the paladins forward again. Every time he's brought them up, he's just done a flyby, so I'm not particularly worried about them. But of course, they come in and go after my artillery. So I send the king over to, hit him over the head a couple of times, and then I decide to go ahead and send the miners in to beat on it, because his cavalry just seems to be hanging out, doesn't really seem to be threatening my flanks, and I want to kill these bastards. So this one paladin kind of gets caught. He's using every ability and potion that he has, so he burnt through all of that to do a little bit of damage to my goblobber, which is already pretty beat up. So I'll take that trade. I'm fine with that. Right now he did have a bowman advantage, but seeing as my goblobber beat him up some, he's going to go after my quarrelers here with his king and with the paladin. So I'm going to send the miners in again, try to pin them down, try to get these guys off the field, because the harassment is quite frustrating. This one, I'm like, okay, if you want to fight dwarf warriors, go ahead and fight dwarf warriors. Here I even pull the front line back because he only has 4 spearmen at arms, so if he wants to charge those into the rear, he can knock himself out. I was hoping to pin down King Lewin, but again, he is one evasive critter. I'm using the Rune of Negation, he's using the Sword of Corone, so basically nobody's hurting anybody here at this point. And then his paladin in here is tangling with my Thane. Not really a good choice for the paladin. I like the Thane in this engagement, so they're doing fine. And now he starts to advance his cavalry from both flanks, as well as his main line, which is just kind of hanging out, which I found kind of strange, but I guess he wanted to free up his paladins, or he just thought now was a good time to charge. So he's going to get a nice charge into my units, but I'm going to respond immediately with tons and tons of guys with pickaxes just hammering away at these guys. Now the Grail Knights are not going to get exactly wiped out by these guys, but pickaxe is working away at that expensive of a unit with these little crappy miners. I'm fine with that. So far it's still very balanced. He brings his king in to finish off the goblobber. That was very important to him, and we're going to get some miners on him and see if we can't splash him up a bit. He does attack, which kind of lands him in the middle of them. So now I'm just like, you know what? I'm getting harassed on every corner. It's time to just blob up and see if we can't kill the king. Like, I'm going to take that chance, and it's going to allow my buffs and runes and everything to affect everybody, or just about everybody. His lightning blast type stuff there is going to be pretty good, the thunderbolt, but that's fine. So I use a little bit headed towards his cav. I've routed the king, but I failed to kill him, which was kind of upsetting. So I'm like, okay, let's try to form battle lines again. So I hadn't completely given up on the idea of battle lines, but again, he's going to bring in paladins, across my bow here. He's got his archers shooting, but I'm not too worried about them. They don't have armor piercing. They're going to get kills, don't get me wrong. But compared to playing a lot of other factions, the dwarfs can kind of ignore that kind of thing. So we're going to go after the paladins hard. I do have my engineer shooting when he's not obstructed, so now I moved him on foot because for some reason he constantly was getting obstructed. Kind of understand here, but even when they were flying sometimes he just wouldn't get a shot off, so it seemed a little buggy. So he's going to be sans a paladin here in a second if he doesn't get him out of here, and he kind of squeezes him in with his own spearmen. But he may be hoping that he can pull him through his own men and be able to extricate himself. My quarrelers, yeah, I kind of gave up on those. Whatever, his calves having a great day over there. I hope they're enjoying themselves. That paladin is dead, but he still has the damsel, and the king is still hanging out way back here, but he's pretty beat up. and his trebuchet is still firing, which makes me very nervous with this large clump I have. Rune of Negation comes down, chasing off this spear unit. So essentially what we have at this point is a dwarf Death Star. Yes, you heard it first. You heard it here first. The dwarf Death Star. So I'm just going to start taking the, hitting Control A and just targeting things. Over here he's got 2 units poorly positioned around my engineer, and they're barely hurting him, so he's just going to hang out. He's fine with what's going on here. They have no armor piercing. He has 120 armor, so I'm fine with that if that's going to distract most of his infantry. Right now I'm beating on his spearmen at arms. They're not doing too well. Now he's going to send in everything towards my dwarf blob, so I'm going to throw down the Rune of Oath and Steel. Going to get the... So basically what I'm doing here is I'm cycling through the Rune of Oath and Steel, the Rune of Negation, and then the Stand Your Ground. So I'm trying to space it out so I almost always have one of these abilities ready anytime he makes a sizable commitment to fighting. So you're going to see my dwarfs are tightly packed in here, barely able to swing, but they are holding well, even with the Curse of the Midnight Wind, which reduces their armor and melee attack. They're still not able to break me, even with the cav. So I keep pursuing the infantry here, because the cav, obviously I'm never going to catch them, and chasing them is just not going to be a cost-effective type thing to do. Some of my quarrelers start to run here, no big deal. My guys are a little hesitant to move in. They're a little too blobbed, but in comes more of his cavalry, and they get in good and tight. They get a good charge, but now a lot more of my guys are fighting. The Rune of Oath and Steel goes down again, still fighting out. Now he's bringing it from every angle, but as you can see, the balance bar is starting to shift in my favor. Even though we're surrounded here, the dwarfs are not going to give up. That's not what they do. The Rune of Negation goes down, so it's going to be even harder for him to get damage in. And I also put up Stand Your Ground because several of my units were starting to waver because they're very low on health, and that's going to solidify their leadership. You're going to see that start to tick up, which is really going to give me the staying power that I need at this point. Just hanging out in the center here, taking on all comers. The dwarfs are like, oh, keep bringing it. We don't care what you bring. We're gonna fight. We're gonna fight. It reminds me of Battle of the Bastards. They're all surrounded, can barely move, but the dwarfs don't care. The dwarfs fight on, and my hero units he's barely touched. So I'm fine with that. The Master Engineer's taking a little bit, but he's not a bad dude. King Llewellyn Core. He's got all of his stuff going on, Harmonic Convergence and Foe Seeker, Deadly Onslaught. Still can't kill the Engineer because dwarfs are tough as nails. So he keeps cycle charging his cav. He's really trying, and I definitely give him an A for effort, but the bar is continuing to slide in my favor. Some of his peasant bowmen ran out of ammunition, so he brings them into combat. He's still obsessed with my quarrelers. God bless him. If 7 quarrelers are that important to him, he can have them. His damsel's like completely out of mana or winds of magic at this point. Now all of his bowmen are out of ammunition, and he's going to bring them in, and that can go either way on you. They might help get a surround for you or something like that. But they're so bad in melee that they're going to cause problems like chain routing. His damsel gets caught in the middle, so we're going to beat her up a good bit. Not that beating a woman's a cool thing, but why do I say things like that? I don't know. Now the king, so he's desperate when he plops the king right down the middle of my dwarfs. Stand Your Ground's up, so they're fine. Leadership is strong on all of them, even though they have almost no health or no men left. The king's just like, the hell with this, I've seen enough. And that is going to end the battle. Be a win for the dwarfs over Bretonnia. So yes, the dwarf Death Star. Now, that is not what this build was intended to do, but you kind of have to understand the frustration. When a guy keeps picking at you like that, taking advantage of the fact that the dwarfs have no mobility, I just decided, what the heck? I've got all these buffs, I've got all these runes. Why not see what happens if I just cluster up and fight to the end? And it worked. Will it work all the time? I have no idea, but it was pretty cool, I think. So my miners did fine. My infantry in general did fine. No big kill numbers here. my leadership corps all survived the fight, so I call that a win. And I kept using their abilities every chance I got. The quarrelers didn't kill a whole lot, but they drew a lot of attention. 39 kills for my Goblobber, considering how heavily targeted it was by my opponent, is quite good. His peasant bowmen had a lot of kills for against the dwarfs, and that's because they got to empty their quivers, every single arrow being shot at my dwarfs. And usually you'd think that'd get you a win, but there was no quit in my dwarfs. His infantry did fine, especially considering they have no armor piercing and there's only 4 of them. His cav, the Knights of the Realm were pretty underwhelming. Grail Knights got their work in. Trebuchet was worth it. The Paladins and the King, I mean, look at the kills on the King. So I really can't knock his army or even his effort. Good game to my opponent. He really, did well cycle charging and everything else, but the Dwarfs just would not give up. And if you can't kill the Dwarf leadership, it just goes to show then you can't win. If you can't kill the runesmith, if you can't kill Thorgrim, if you can't kill the engineer, you can't win. It's almost impossible. I'm not saying it's completely impossible. I'm just saying it's very, very, very hard, and I think this demonstrated that. So if you're ever in a bad situation with your dwarfs, don't be afraid to press Control A and send them all in. What's the worst thing that can happen? You might just win with a dwarf Death Star. So if you enjoyed the video, enjoyed the fight, or if you learned something, or hopefully both, please hit like, please hit subscribe. Until the next time, this is the Magnus, and I will see you on the ladder.